What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. NBA trade deadline is right around the corner. I'm not really sure why my guy, our NBA insider, Jonathan Marshall, is donning these nasty, disgusting, despicable colors of green. And I don't even see
all types of green, Q.
You know what? And joining us for the last time on BY is my guy, Jonathan Marshall, at John_Marshall3. Does a great job covering the association. We'll get to your birds in a moment, my friend. All right. So listen, trade deadline is right around the corner this week, Thursday. We already saw the big news drop, which, let's be honest, I don't know. When do we sit back when it comes to a player like Kyrie Irving? And I don't want to say or use the phrase, this guy just doesn't get it, because that means really what, but this guy just doesn't get it. Like, what are you doing? You play with Cleveland, then you want to be more of a focal point. Then you go to Boston, then you have the injuries and you still want to be more of a focal point. Then you turn around and you sign with the Nets, and you just, the COVID issues, the non-vaccination, the tweet, then the injuries and the inconsistencies. But when they're on the floor, it looks like it can mesh. And now all of a sudden you don't need a head coach in Steve Nash. In comes Vaughn. I mean, my goodness, like, what do you do with a player like this? And then ultimately your hand is forced and you jettison to the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, is this shocking to you? You've been following Kyrie his whole career.
It's not shocking. I mean, I feel like every time we talk about the Nets, right, this season, it's always, I've mentioned, I just don't trust it. And we have the list of why, and Kyrie is always at the top of the list of why we don't trust it. There's always going to be something. And things, part of me was feeling like, okay, maybe Brooklyn is turning this thing around, right? We had that conversation. Like, I was slowly starting to maybe buy into it, but then it was too good to be true, right? And lo and behold, out of the blue, I want to be traded, right? And so I look at the Kyrie situation. It's just another example of he's talented, right? And he can still produce. And this is the only reason why teams are willing to give him these opportunities. If Kyrie wasn't the Kyrie that we know to be today, putting up 30 and just being an amazing individual talent, there wouldn't be teams lining up to have him. Like, it just wouldn't be happening. And so I look at Kyrie. He's played with LeBron, KD, James Harden, now Luka. I mean, you can't look back and give Kyrie any excuses. Like, he's been set up each and every step of the way to succeed and win. Each step of the way, Cleveland, Boston, Brooklyn, now in Dallas. Like, he's been set up his whole career with some Hall of Fame talents. In every situation, he's found a way to be unhappy about it. That's what I see.
Well, he's a franchise killer.
Mm-hmm.
He's a coach killer and he's a franchise killer. And I really don't think anyone can dispute that or debate it. And it's not even about the talent, but there's something between the ears where I don't know if it's entitlement. I don't know if it's, take the ball and want to go home. I don't know what it is. And it's unfortunate because everyone was talking about the Nets now, Harden and Durant and Kyrie, and now Durant, Simmons and Kyrie, and now it's just Durant who wants out, and then, oh, by the way, half a player in Simmons. But my point is this: those three assembled, and it's an implosion. Like, it's a debacle. It is one of the worst, signings, additions. It just never worked. They'll probably make a 30 for 30 out of it because that's how bad it is. I can't get into the mind of one Kyrie Irving. I don't understand, as you alluded to and highlighted, you have an opportunity to play with wall-to-wall Hall of Famers and win, because we've seen it before. How we not? We can argue if it's not for Kyrie, Cleveland doesn't win a championship. He was unbelievable aside from LeBron and his block against Andre Iguodala. I'm going to look at this guy and he's a malcontent. And when we talk about the Chad Johnsons, the Terrell Owens, the Dennis Rodmans, the Randy Moss, they're choir boys compared to Kyrie, because he's literally blowing up these franchises. He's leaving destruction in his wake, right? I mentioned this the other day. He's fleeing the scene of the crime, and there's no remorse.
Yeah, I mean, Brooklyn, James Harden is looking like really good. Really smart. He said, get me out of here. Like, I see where this thing is headed. And lo and behold, you give us some time and we're seeing what's happening. And right now for Brooklyn, they're in a situation where you have KD I'm not even going to mention Ben Simmons, right? Like to
Or should
me,
you?
he's not a superstar. He's not a star. I'm over that conversation. Like whatever you want to talk about, his game is broken mentally, whatever it is, he's not playing. So let's just get over that, right? Like he's not a star, and I'm done with it. It's over, right? So it's just KD and who else? That's it. I mean, Cam Thomas, you have some young guys. It's KD and a bunch of young guys who are growing and developing. Claxton's getting better. Cam Thomas is doing his thing. But when you look at the grand scheme of things for Brooklyn, they put everything into Harden, KD, and Kyrie. And now you have KD. You got swept by Boston last year. You lose to Milwaukee in the Eastern Conference playoffs. What do you have to show for it, right?
Yep.
And now you're left with what? Like, what are you left with?
The coverage bear.
Does KD want to be here for this situation? I don't know. Who are you adding to help KD? Who are you adding in Brooklyn? I just don't see it.
Well, you mentioned the young kid. I mean, he played well last night. I think he had 40 plus, but he had to answer questions about Kyrie. I like Smith. I think he's a solid player, right, on the wing. Good defensive player. Dinwiddie, happy to be back, right? He'll give you the 20, 20, here and there. But I feel as though, Dallas gave up a boatload, right? And if Mark Cuban thinks this is a reclamation project, I got news for you and news for him. Right? It almost seems like a thing in a Shark Tank. For that reason, I'm out. Like this is not going to work. It's not. Something will happen during the season, late in the season, perhaps in the playoffs. It's going to be the same old song and the same old dance. And to your point with Brooklyn, you get the 2029 first round pick, second round pick in 2027 and 2029. So they've got some work, right? They've got some assets, but it also goes to, I believe this was not going to work when, you correct me if I'm wrong, who was the player that made the comment, we don't really need a coach?
That was Kyrie Irving himself.
Yeah.
Steve Nash. It was over from the beginning. It was over. Like the minute one of your marquee pieces, your point guard is saying, we don't need a head coach. Yeah. I've never heard a pro athlete say that publicly. I've never heard that. So to have your point guard to have that mentality, you know what I'm saying? And now to hear Jason Kidd say he wants to be, he wants to be coached now. Like, do you think Kyrie wants to be, all of a sudden he wants to be coached? This is the same guy who says, we don't need a coach. So which one is it? Every step of the way, Kyrie says, the sentiment has been, I'm happy to be here. I want to be here. It was the same case in Boston, same case in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And it's rinse and repeat. At a certain point, you got to read a person's history to predict the future, right? Like, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Like,
100%.
How many times are we going to be fooled by this?
Yeah, 100%. You got to read the room. What does it say right now that the Nets are pretty much bending over backwards, right, to kind of keep Durant in the loop, fluid, hard conversations? That's just trying to appease a player that wants to get the hell out of there. I mean, that to me, that's damage control right now.
It is. I mean, you can't, with KD, you see Harden leave, then Kyrie leave. You see Ben Simmons, who knows? I mean, he has knee soreness, I guess, right? I think that's wearing thin on Jacques Vaughn. Could have predicted that. Sorry, Nets fans. We could have told you what was going to happen.
He's got a problem with a ticker, but that's besides the point.
So KD is like, look, if I'm KD, you cannot be happy right now. And I don't know what direction Brooklyn is going in when it comes to the Eastern Conference, right? Boston is not going anywhere. Milwaukee's not going anywhere. Philly has been playing really well. Cleveland's a young rising team. In the hierarchy of the Eastern Conference, Brooklyn can quickly slide down easily. You know what I'm saying? What moves is Brooklyn making this year, next year, that can really catapult them into a championship? KD's not getting any younger, right? Like, he's pushing mid-30s at this point. Like,
well, he's 34. He's got 3 years left on a $198 million contract. So what does that tell you?
I mean, the outlook doesn't look good for Brooklyn. It doesn't. As great as of a player KD is, and as much progress as we're seeing in Nick Claxton and Cam Thomas, these are young guys. They're not ready to compete in the playoffs for championships. And that's what KD is. That's why KD is in Brooklyn. That was the plan. And now the plan is just unraveled. And I don't see it getting fixed. You
go back in August, didn't Durant rescind a trade request, right? So he might be thinking, I mean, I'm just fascinated with when players do this, like why it doesn't work out, or Why is there sabotage? Like I feel as though Kyrie is an extremely self-centered, selfish player, right? And he plays the martyr, and I can't stand that shit. He plays the victim. I'm like thinking to myself, he's obviously an intelligent kid. Well, he's an intelligent young man. He's made a boatload of money, and you can argue he's a Hall of Famer.
No doubt.
But yet, he's just a miserable friggin' person. So if I can't be happy, I'm going to make everyone else around me miserable. So to your point before, Jonathan, when you said, well, teams know he's talented, that's why they keep taking flyers. But when do you just say enough is enough? I don't want to deal with this player.
The minute he can't give you 30 on any given night, that's when, right? Like, that's when. Or if there's like a really drastic off-course situation where there's no going back, right? Like there's nothing, no excuse, no apology can correct what you did. Like that's it.
Well, we kind of went through that with the tweet when he doubled down.
Right. But there were some things that he was able to do publicly and internally to, appease things and move forward. But there are some things that there's no one going back from, right? And so until he can't give you 30 and electrify a crowd and bring people to the stadiums to watch him play, teams will still believe, that, hey, he's good enough. Let's see if we can take a flyer, maybe even for a rental, and see what can happen.
You don't believe Durant gets moved
before the deadline? From what reports are at this point, no.
Let me give you a couple names. Crowder, Russell, my man OG there in Toronto. I mean, I think those are all viable players that potentially. I know Crowder's dealing with the what's he got, a knee injury? He's dealing with a knee injury right now. He's been out for a while. He requested He requested a trade. My man OG in Toronto. I think he's a young and talented player. I mean, I think a trade to maybe your Grizz or my Knicks, because now you add another dimension. You add another 3-point shooter, even though it probably takes a little bit of burn away from RJ. And then you got D'Angelo Russell. Those players that I kind of mentioned, do you see them being moved?
Yeah, I can see OG. OG's been the name, I guess, the major name, right? That's been out there. Toronto in general, everybody except Scotty Barnes. Toronto has a lot of, Siakam, Gary Trent Jr. Toronto is a viable team with a lot of guys that can, you add one of those guys, they can really catapult you, especially in the Western Conference. There's so much, everybody seems like outside of Denver, it's a really close race, right?
Yeah.
So you add a couple guys here and there, it can make a difference. And OG is a young guy who can play defense. His offensive game is developing. He'd be a great pickup for the Knicks for sure, adding some shooting and adding some defense as well. So OG is one of those guys you can plug in any situation, and he can make an impact. And Jay Crowder's the veteran, toughness, can shoot it. He'd be perfect in a Milwaukee situation, something like that, a team with veterans that's ready to win right now. He'd be great. So I would look at OG for sure. And just that Toronto situation in general, they seem to be on the downward trend. And so I feel like that's a team. In Utah as well, they have a couple guys, Mike Conley, a veteran.
Yep.
Jordan Clarkson, he's just a microwave scorer. Malik Beasley. Utah started off so strong, and now they're sort of coming back to where we thought they would be, right? The thing with Utah is Danny Ainge, we know he wants to get a lot of picks back, so our team's willing to give him these 3 and 4 first round craziness, right? Danny Ainge is gonna try to fleece somebody. That we do know. So Utah and Toronto are the two teams I'm looking at to see if there are some pieces being moved.
What about the Sixers? I know that Cork Mullins has come out. He wants, he requests to be traded. He's appeared in 50 games the last 2 seasons. He's played in just 25 of the 52 for the 76ers. He wants to play, right? So again, you add another veteran or a guy coming off the bench, at least, a shooter. I don't know how many teams he would kind of fit at this point, and I don't know if the Sixers are going to grant that request.
Yeah, there's no time for him in Philly, right? And we don't even, I don't know how much is he moving the needle for a playoff team, right? And if he is dealt, I would expect it to be a part of a package deal situation, right? So we'll see with Philly. A lot of talk is front court help, right? Andre Drummond, who had a big game the other night. I think bringing him back would be huge. So there, I think Philly getting that front court help defensively, a rim protector, because Paul Reed and Montrez, Harold, maybe aren't what this team needs fully right now. Andre Drummond could really help out with that for sure.
All right. Let's just kind of go around the league for a second. You look at the Eastern Conference right now: Boston, Milwaukee, Philly, Cleveland, Brooklyn, Miami, the Knicks, Atlanta, Chicago, Indiana. I still look, Philly's played well. We have our reservations with them.
Yeah.
I still like Milwaukee's won 9 out of their last 10, 9-1 their last 10. Boston's kind of tripped up a little bit, 6-4. There's 6-4 in their last 10. What about these reports that Brown can be traded?
Yeah.
I think you do that, you've cut your nose off to spite your face. That the 1-2 punch of Tatum and Brown, I just think there's so much there. What would be the reasoning for trying to move him?
The only reason would be the Boston front office is so enamored with KD. That's the only reason. And does getting KD elevate our championship ceiling compared to where we are now? Because I think right now in Boston is a championship favorite right now. If all things being equal, I think Boston would be my pick right now to win it all. Close though, because Denver's right there for me. Denver is right there. But getting a KD, would that further solidify it, right? Versus Jaylen Brown, his contract's up in a couple years. Do we see him resigning? If we see him leaving, how much of our future are we giving up?
Right.
If Jaylen Brown's leaving in a couple years anyway, versus KD still in his prime for another couple years. When it comes to that final stretch and needing marquee superstar players in key moments, KD is proven to make big shots and be a playmaker. Jaylen Brown has elevated his game mightily this season. So it's versus, do we believe this team is championship ready right now versus KD? Does that even further solidify us, right? And so it's interesting, but I will go back years ago, right? You may remember this, Golden State, when Klay and Steph were really coming to their own. There was conversation about trading Klay Thompson for Kevin Love, I believe, right?
Yes.
And I was against it. I said, what makes Golden State so lethal is that they have these guys who are able to shoot it. We've never seen this before, right? You take that away, Kevin Love's a good player, but Klay and Steph together are so dynamic. And so in Boston, you have two wing guys who can handle it, who can score, who can shoot it. When they're clicking, it's amazing to watch. Not many teams, how many other teams have 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" guys that young, that athletic, all-star level talent on the wing, playing like that? It's rare.
Yep. No, agree 100%. And it's interesting. So if you look at some of these odds, Boston right now, plus 350, Milwaukee plus 650, Denver plus 700. Sixers have been teetering, depending upon where you hang your hat, plus 900 to 1,000. But I just want to go down a little more. So Dallas, 1,200, 13, now sitting at 1,500 with that move. And again, I don't believe that move is going to put them over the top. I really don't. But I do kind of agree with you. I think Boston's most balanced team. We want to throw Golden State from the Western Conference, so we can't do that anymore because of the Curry injury, right? I mean,
that's big.
This team over the last several years, the injuries have just dogged it, whether it's Thompson, whether it's Curry, the issues with Green. So I kind of get rid of them. Memphis standing pretty strong. Phoenix, we know about their track record come playoff time. Cleveland, we know about them as well. Still kind of a young team figuring out. And then you got Brooklyn. So I think Milwaukee, Boston, those are my two in the Eastern Conference. And, Denver to me is just, and they get up and down the floor. They remind me, like they push the pace, right? Remember back in the day with, what was it? D'Antonio?
Phoenix.
Yeah. Just
13 seconds or less.
There you go. 13 seconds or less. Right. Thank you. And they've got wing players, perimeter, they got depth, and obviously they have one of the focal points and one of the best scorers in the NBA. I mean, to me, I think that team, if they don't get to the NBA finals, it's a disappointment. The way things are opening up right now.
Yeah. Beginning of the season, it was Denver, Memphis, New Orleans. They were sort of grouped in. New Orleans is going through their struggles. they just seem, something's going. I mean, obviously injuries to Zion and Ingram has sort of slowed them down, but they've fallen off drastically. Memphis is still there, but I feel like it's Denver, and then there's a gap between that jumbled up group in the Western Conference with Memphis, Sacramento, Clippers, Dallas, Golden State, New Orleans. Denver is dangerous because, like you said, they run it and they have a guy, the focal point in Nikola Jokic, right? Like he's just unstoppable. I mean, offensively, and just his ability to make others around him better. And it's kind of contagious, right? You watch Denver and these guys, they're running the floor and they're moving in the half court because they know the Joker is going to find them in ways that the defense can't even account. Like he's finding holes within the defense to find these guys, right? And you have guys like Christian Braun and Bruce Brown has gotten better, right? He's knocking down shots. If Jamal Murray and Michael Porter, can they stay healthy? That's the key, right? If they can get a consistent effort out of those guys, man, Denver's deep. They have the wings. They have the marquee player. They have a Jamal Murray, a secondary guy. Michael Porter can shoot it. Man, Denver's tough. Denver is really tough. And they've been through the rigors of the playoffs over the years, right? This isn't a team that doesn't have that experience. So I think the next logical step for them is let's make this deep run to the finals.
Yeah, it's a good point with Murray and Porter. I mean, 20 and 16 respectively, and Joker right around 25. Real quick, I know you follow college hoops as well. I've had this conversation. We look at UCLA, Tennessee, Alabama, Houston, Purdue, and I mentioned Purdue last week because I'm like, oh man, I'll tell you, if they don't get to the Final Four, win a championship, and cut down the nets, it's a disappointment. And then what do? They turn around and they lose to Indiana, right? I can't recall, and they lost to Rutgers. Mm-hmm. I feel as though this season, there's so many upsets in college basketball. I can't recall a time where Temple, right? Temple, the first time against Houston, Rutgers, Purdue, Indiana, Purdue, UCLA, we saw, Alabama stub their toe, Houston stubbed their toe. I've never seen anything like this. I mean, from a betting standpoint, it kind of scares the bejeebuses out of me, but also there's some value in some of these real big underdogs that are like 18, 20, 21 points, right? I mean, then you had little, FAU win like 20 something odd games in a row and then they lost. So you recall a season in recent memory where there were so many dogs that are basically pulling off some major upsets?
I don't recall, Q, and I'm looking at the rankings right now.
Yeah.
I think I can't recall a college basketball season where the top couple prospects weren't in college basketball, right? The top two draft prospects, Victor and Scoot, aren't even playing college ball. Yeah. One's overseas, one playing G League for the G League Ignite. So I think Brandon Miller for Alabama is a great freshman, but we're not really talking about those marquee one and done or two sophomore stars this year in college basketball. Right now, it's about who has the deeper teams, who has the strong guard play. And you're going to see some teams tail off. You're going to see these upsets with Purdue. I've been saying it all season. They just don't seem like a team I trust. And
they're one-dimensional.
You got Zach Edey. And I told one of my guys, look, I don't trust their guard play to make a deep run. I think they have, they're too inexperienced. And if you go up against teams with juniors or senior guard play, bigger, more athletic, like Houston or Baylor, I think Purdue would have a tough run. And so if I had to put, my trust in a team or two teams, it would be Houston and Baylor or Kansas. Those are the teams that I've watched and say, okay, I trust them.
You got Walker Roberts and you got the guard Sasser, and this, what's March Madness predicated on? It's backcourt. It's guard play, right? It seems as though if you go around the top 10 schools in the nation right now, and even if you don't follow college basketball and you turn around, you pull up all the stats, the leaders are typically the backcourt guys, the two guards. That's it. Whether it's 10, 15, 18, and you mentioned Purdue, they're so one-dimensional. And I think this kid's arguably going to be the player of the year. He's putting up monster. He's a walking double-double. I don't know if that's going to translate to a great career in the pros, but I'm just, these one-dimensional teams, man, it's tough to want to bet with them and kind of ride them because they're due for, I feel as though Purdue, as much as I like that team,
Yeah.
They're one and done.
I like last year's Purdue team better because they had Jay and Ivy, a stud lottery pick that I'll say, okay, you have Zach, you have Eddie, you have a dynamic guard going straight to the league after this season. I like that dynamic more so than this season. You're so reliant upon Eddie. And I feel like if their shots aren't falling, we've seen it come tournament time. If a team's shot isn't falling,
that's it.
They're done.
Yeah.
And all it takes is the opposing team to get hot, it's a wrap. Or if Eddie gets in foul trouble, then what? So, the Houstons, the Kansases, the Baylors, I think those are well-balanced teams that will give any teams a tough run. And I would trust one of those teams to make deep runs.
I'll give you a team that I think is going to be a sleeper because I like the guards. Texas.
Yeah. Texas with Hunter and Carr.
Carr and yep.
Yeah. Yep. Texas they have some guys. They have another guy, Rice, off the bench.
Yep.
Who can really shoot it, right? And so, but once again, these teams with these guards that can be dynamic. I do feel like a Texas team is going to be in a national title game. I will say that. A team from Texas, whether it's Houston, Baylor, or it's going to be a team from at least one. I will say that. I'm confident in saying that.
Yeah, Phi Sam and Jam is not walking through that door for you. All right, I give you a minute to
Listen, Hugh, this is our time. Who would have thought 5 years later we'd be back in this moment? I think the Eagles have proven to be the gold standard in the NFL. I think this is our rightful place.
Time out. You're not
top the NFL.
This is not the Academy Awards, man.
We like to thank all the doubters. What's up with your guy too? What's his name for the Giants? Who said he loved the safety? He was talking trash. He needs to silence himself a little bit.
By the way, part of me is very happy that I did not watch that game in its entirety because I was doing the broadcast from Mexico for boxing, because they didn't show up and they had this demeanor of just happy to be there, and that doesn't sit well with me. But they're still void in talent in so many areas. The Minnesota win on the road was fantastic, but they are not on the level of the Eagles. And I'll keep repeating myself, and I know it's just getting nauseating for the viewing audience, because I've been saying this on BYP for the last 3 weeks, even before the playoffs started, if it was going to be the Eagles in Kansas City. And now I'm even more confident and sure to say this game reeks of what Tampa Bay defensively did to Kansas City a couple of years ago. And I typically am either flated up or deflated in my confidence level. I'm flated up. I make up words on Back Your Play. I'm flated up. I won't go on the record yet, but I have a feeling that my phone is going to be nonstop come Sunday. And to be quite frank, that's going to piss me off. So
let's go. Let's go, Q. Look, I'm confident. Like, the only thing that gives me pause is I respect Mahomes. You have to respect the ability of Mahomes.
He's compromised. He's not 100%.
Yes. I don't think the way the defensive line of Philly's playing, I think we're going to give them a long night. And offensively for Kansas City, I'm not scared of what they offer outside of Kelsey. The running game is not existent.
I'll tell you who might be an X factor. Kid right about 25 miles from me, Pacheco out of Vineland, Cumberland County.
Yes. Yeah.
If that kid gets his 18, 20 touches, that might tell you something come Monday. I like Hurts, man. I've gone on the record. I can't stand the friggin' head coach. I think he's a jerk off. I don't even say his name. I can't. He just rubs me the wrong friggin' way. I look at him and I'm just like, no, man, go away. I don't need to see you. And it's a friggin' unlikable team. Yes. Now my non-objective cue is coming out. It's a friggin' unlikable team, and they just flap their guns and they're cocky and they're arrogant. But come Sunday, 6:37, there's someplace that I want to be. And they're in the Super Bowl. And I'm a big fan of Hurts, man. I like this kid. He's got that demeanor about him where, all you mother effers who doubted me, look where I am right now. And I think it comes off not in a passive aggressive way. It comes off as a chip on the shoulder where he's not going to let you fully in. And I like that about him. It's like mysterious. He's not going to peel the curtain back, right? Maybe smile once in a while, but he's business-like. And you can tell that him getting benched in college did not sit well with him. Him getting disrespected when the Eagles drafted him did not sit well with him. The talking heads and the doubters that said the kid can't play did not sit well with him. And now he's got an opportunity to shut a lot of people up. And listen, he's earned that right. If he goes out and he balls out and he has a big time game and he's MVP, sprout away, man. I mean, listen, I can't not, I don't like to root, but I like that kid. I do.
Nah, it's been amazing to watch just his growth from one year to the next, right? He's improved in so many ways. And so that confidence that, you know, even when things may be going not so well, he doesn't seem to be shaken. I feel like that confidence, it trickles down to the rest of the guys. That's important for a quarterback. You know that, right? Like,
of course,
you can't see the QB rattled. And he's never shown that. And so I look at this matchup for Jalen against this Chiefs defense. They have a young secondary. I think A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith are going to eat. I think Devontae Smith is going to I think he might have a big day. I'm excited about big game Devontae. I don't think he properly gets his flowers. Like, do you understand what you're watching with Devontae Smith? Like, the things that this guy does on the football field, he's one of the best in the game. A.J. Brown's great. But come on. Come on, that's Mr. Heisman winner. Come on, we're going to do it. I'm excited to see who wins MVP. You got Hurts possibly, maybe Devonta, maybe AJ, maybe Hassan Reddick, Camden, New Jersey's finest, right, from Jersey.
I feel like getting when I travel, right, because I'm so anal when I travel or I fly, I always bring this just in case. I don't trust these.
Wow.
I feel like doing this to you right now.
Wow.
Get out of here with that nonsense.
Who's been the best team from beginning to now? Let's just come on. Who's been the best team in the league? Looking at them. And we're going to prove it one final time. Andy Reid, sorry. Great coach for what you did in Philly. But no, it's not happening.
I'm starting to get stress.
Oh my goodness. Imagine the scene in Philly when they win another Super Bowl. That's going to be insane. It's going to happen.
You anchor on Sunday nights?
I do. And I got to find, this is Boston territory. So I've been rubbing it in a little bit about the Philly special. And, I let them know.
Will you wear a green tie?
I may have to go to the store and find a midnight green tie. I may have to do that.
Yeah, and then see how fast they rip up that contract.
What's your prediction, Q? I got to know from a Giants fan. Who do you think is going to win? I could tell you're not comfortable because you know what it is. You know what it is.
I'm not going to technically go on the record just yet, but I've said this. I think this game has the makings of. I think the path for the Eagles to victory is that defensive line. If they start to get to Mahomes and rattle him, it's a short field, less possessions. I think both teams might be able to kind of go up and down the field on each other. But to me, it's in the trenches. That's the path for the Eagles. And if you're Kansas City, you got to figure out a way to limit those RPOs. You have to figure out a way to get a roamer and spy on Jalen Hurts. You can't let this kid go off, but I don't know. It seems as though it's like almost a foregone conclusion. It's been weird this week, right? I guess it's because the 2 weeks, everyone seems to think that the Eagles are going to blow out Kansas City.
I don't see blowout. I don't know. I feel like we're the better. I don't know. You line up everything being equal. O-line, D-line, health, the experience there. I don't have any hard cases for Kansas City outside of Mahomes. That's the only reason I would give him a chance because of Mahomes.
Jones is a nice player. The offensive line for the Eagles, if they all of a sudden get old or collapse, Kansas City's got a shot, but that's a big, these guys they got some big balls on them, that offensive line, man. They're tough.
In that KC secondary, I don't know. What's going to happen with that?
Yeah.
Mecole Hardman's on the IR. that's a major loss for Kansas City.
Yeah, no, listen, everything you're saying is accurate. I just, hopefully the commercials are good. I don't know what you want me to say.
Hey, Rihanna, my girl Rihanna's performing at halftime. She's gonna put on the show.
Yeah, that's DVR. That's already a foregone conclusion. You don't have to worry about that. So, all right, he is my guy, my NBA insider, Jonathan Marshall. He'll be wearing his look at this. It's horrible.
Go Birds.
That's horrible. All right, listen. Good stuff as always. Enjoy the game, and I wish you and your Eagle brother, hopefully the bus doesn't break down to the
We
Good luck
appreciate
on Sunday.
We appreciate it.
All right, always appreciate you, pal.